The desert wind kicks up dust in slow, swirling circles, whispering across the worn wooden planks of Calico Junction. It's 1872, and the sun sits high above a weather-beaten western town that's carved out of dry earth and harder history. The color line here isn't drawn in ink. It's burned into the bones of the people who walk these streets. The white townsfolk don't bother hiding the way they look down their noses at folks who don't look like them. Especially not at Silas Boon. Silas leans against the doorway of the blacksmith shop, wiping the sweat from his brow. His hands are calloused, thick with years of forging horseshoes and wagon wheels, but it's not the metal that weighs him down. It's the silence. The kind that settled in after Etta, his wife, passed 2 winters ago. Pneumonia took her fast. Too fast. Now it's just him and the forge. Hammer, anvil, repeat. The townspeople call him that colored smith. They use his services when it suits them, but never share a table with him at the saloon. He's tolerated, not respected, and certainly not welcomed past sundown in certain parts of town. Still, he keeps his head down, keeps working, keeps surviving. He notices the girl first, barefoot, silent, clinging to the post outside the general store like she's trying to disappear into the wood. Her hair's tangled, her dress hanging off one shoulder. She's got that look Silas knows too well, hunger mixed with fear. And not the kind that comes from missing supper. The kind that sinks in your bones when the world's taught you not to trust a soul. Then he sees her. A pregnant woman. Eyes hollow, belly full. Standing too still in the heat. A sign around her neck reads $1. She's not crying. She's past tears. Silas's heart stalls for half a breath. It's not the first time he's seen things like this. Human auctions never left the South. They just went underground. But here, out in the open, in Calico Junction, in front of white folks sipping lemonade and acting like it's Sunday, his gut twists. A rough voice cuts through the dry air. $1. For the woman and her half-wit brat. Strong back. Breeds easy. Who'll take her? The auctioneer is Jed Tully, known around town for slapping his wife and spitting tobacco in church. A white man with a sneer that always lands on Silas like a blade. No one blinks. No one objects. Some even chuckle. Silas doesn't move. Not yet. But something inside him shifts. Like iron being heated slowly. A tension he doesn't fully understand, yet curls in his chest. He tells himself to stay out of it. Ain't your business. Ain't your fight. But the little girl glances up at him. And just like that, it is the next morning, Silas wakes before the sun. The forge is cold, but the unease in his chest burns hot. He sharpens his tools anyway, like muscle memory might drown the memory of what he saw yesterday. But it doesn't. He can't shake the image of that woman, barefoot, belly heavy with child, standing like a statue beneath the auction block. And that girl, eyes too old for her face. That kind of look doesn't come from hunger alone. He walks past the general store later that day, pretending to inspect a wagon wheel outside. But really, he's watching. Listening. The girl is there again, sweeping the front steps in silence. Her arms are too thin for work like that. Her eyes dart from every man who passes, like she's waiting for something bad to happen, and knows it probably will. Don't worry none, says a low voice behind him. Jed keeps them in line. Knows how to deal with wild stock like that. Silas turns to see Sheriff Mort Kinley, a man with a white hat, a silver star, and eyes that never smile. He chews on a splinter of wood, watching the girl like she's livestock. She run in her mouth or something? The sheriff asks casually. Jed said she's got a temper. Like her mama. Silas doesn't answer. He knows how this game works. Mort's the kind of man who lets white men like Jed Tully auction human beings in plain sight and calls it discipline if anyone questions it. He walks the line of the law like it's a whip, always cracking toward folks like Silas when no one's looking. You think it's right? Silas finally asks, voice steady. Mort shrugs. What's right is what keeps the peace. Man's got a wife who don't listen, he's gotta do something. The words sit like rot in Silas's stomach. Later, at the forge, Silas sees them again. The woman and the girl are led into the alley behind the general store. Jed follows, loud and stumbling drunk. Silas can't see everything. Just enough.
A yelp.
A muffled curse. The sound of something or someone hitting the dirt hard. He moves toward the alley before he can stop himself. But when he rounds the corner, there's nothing there. Just the girl, wide-eyed and shaking, crouched beside a tipped-over barrel. The woman's gone. No blood, no bruises. Just silence. "She okay?" he asks. The girl nods, but her lips are trembling. "You sure?" She nods again. Too fast. He kneels beside her, lowers his voice. "What's her name?" She hesitates. Looks around like the question itself is dangerous. "Lila," she whispers. "Lila," he repeats. "If something's wrong, you can tell me." She just stares, then runs. Silas watches her disappear down the alley. His heart pounds harder than any hammer swing. Something's deeply wrong here. But no one's saying it.
Not yet.
The next time Silas sees the woman, it's raining. Not the kind of rain that soothes the earth, but a hard, biting downpour that turns dust to sludge and paints misery across every porch step. She's dragging a sack of potatoes across the general store yard, soaked through to the skin. Her dress clings to her like a second punishment. Her belly looks heavier.
Strained.
One misstep and she could collapse. "Hey!" Silas calls, stepping out from the smithy. "You'll catch your death out here." She doesn't answer. Just keeps moving, like the word mercy was wrung out of her a long time ago. "Jed!" Silas shouts toward the store. "You got this woman working in weather fit for drowning rats." Jed Tully saunters out from under the awning with a sneer curling beneath his mustache. His coat is dry, boots polished, cigar glowing like a coal. "She's mine, Smith," he says casually. "Bought and paid. If she wants to earn her bread, she works when I say." "You bought a person, Jed." Jed raises an eyebrow, lips twitching with theatrical confusion. "Don't remember you objectin' when the auction block was crowded. I didn't know she was with child. Or that the child's hers." Jed spits on the ground. "Don't matter. She belonged to me the moment her husband handed me that bill of sale." Silas steps forward. "You mean traded her for whiskey and debt forgiveness?" "That ain't a sale, Jed. That's trafficking." Jed shrugs. "Ain't illegal if nobody cares." That night, Silas can't sleep. He sharpens his axe even though there's no wood to cut. He stares at the fire like it might answer back. The next morning, he visits Pastor Hiram, the only man in town with enough spine to call injustice what it is, even if it costs him his seat at the Sunday table.
"She's a prisoner," Silas says.
"And that child, Lila, she won't say it, but she's seen things no child should." The pastor nods grimly. "Jed's daddy left this town in ruin. Jed's building an empire on what's left, bribes, threats, and ignorance. I need help." Hiram eyes him carefully. "You sure you want to start this war?" "I ain't starting it," Silas says. "I'm just tired of watching it happen." Pastor Hiram connects him with Rebecca Yates, a black schoolteacher who runs a literacy circle on the edge of town. Rebecca's dealt with men like Jed before. Men who use the law like a leash. "Get her story on record," she tells Silas. "Dates, names, proof. Then we go to the circuit judge." She's too scared to talk. "Then talk to the girl." Kids don't lie the same way adults do. Silas waits until Sunday. While Jed is off drinking with the sheriff, Silas spots Lila behind the church, feeding scraps to a stray cat. "Lila," he says gently, kneeling beside her. "Is your mama hurtin'? Is Jed the one hurting her?" She doesn't speak, but her eyes water. She nods.
"Once."
It's enough. By Tuesday, word starts to spread, quietly, through whispers and paper slips passed behind store counters. Women nod at Silas when he walks by. Black folks offer him quiet solidarity. Even some of the white men, tired of Jed's taxes and tyranny, tip their hats a little lower. Jed hears it too. And by Thursday, he's waiting for Silas. Outside the forge. With Sheriff Mort at his side. "Well now," Jed says, voice low and smug. "Heard you been snoopin', Smith." You fix in to play hero for some half-blood and her bastard spawn. Silas doesn't flinch. Because now he's not alone. And Jed just made his biggest mistake. He showed his hate out loud. BY Friday, the town's holding its breath. No one says it out loud, but the tension crackles like kindling too close to flame. Shopkeepers sweep the same spots twice. Old men linger outside the saloon with folded arms and narrow eyes. Even the children walk a little faster on their way home. Something is coming. And it starts with the clang of Silas's forge shutting down at noon. He doesn't say a word to anyone. Just wipes the soot from his hands, changes into his cleanest shirt, and straps the iron ledger to his saddlebag. He mounts his horse and rides straight to the town square, right in front of the courthouse steps. Jed Tully is already there, smug and flanked by 2 deputies. Mort leans against a post like this is entertainment. Look who thinks he's got a case. Jed sneers. What? You dragging her out here to cry on cue? Maybe get some sympathy from the colored folk and spinsters. Silas dismounts, calm as a still lake. I don't need sympathy. I brought facts. Jed laughs. Facts don't mean squat if the law's on my side. Rebecca Yates steps from the crowd, holding a small recording device. That's what you said 3 nights ago, ain't it? When you told Lila her mama would learn her place or lose the baby. Jed blinks, then laughs again. You got a child's voice on tape? Please. Pastor Hiram steps forward next. She's not the only one. The midwife you hired to check on the woman? She's here. And she's not blind. She saw the bruises, the torn stitches, the scars. A ripple moves through the crowd. Jed's smile tightens. This ain't a court. This is a show. And Sheriff Kinley, he is the law here. Mort finally steps off the post, arms crossed. That's right, he says. Y'all better remember where you stand. Silas turns to him slowly. We did. Which is why we brought someone who outranks you. A hush falls. From behind the stagecoach rolls up a tall man in a dark overcoat. Circuit Judge Ellis Blackwell, white as bone, known for despising corruption, and for owing Pastor Hiram a favor from years back. I heard there was a property dispute in this town, Blackwell says, stepping down with precise movements. But what I see is human trafficking, coerced labor, physical assault, and a sheriff who's either blind or bought. Jed goes pale. Sheriff Mort stammers. Now hold on. You hold nothing, Blackwell snaps. You don't even hold office anymore. I'm placing both of you under investigation, effective immediately. People murmur. Heads turn. Hats come off. Silas says nothing. He just watches Jed, who suddenly looks very small. You thought this town wouldn't care, Silas says quietly. But we do. We cared enough to listen, to record, to witness. You'll regret this, Jed growls. I got friends. Money. You had power, Rebecca replies. Now you just got consequences. Jed lunges, desperate, stupid. 2 townsfolk grab him. He's wrestled to the ground, cursing through his teeth. Lila peeks out from behind the general store steps. Her mother beside her, bruised but standing. Silas meets her eyes. She nods once, stronger than before. And for the first time since the auction, she smiles. Jed Tully's confidence shatters like a bottle against brick. Dragged to his feet, wrists bound with rawhide, he thrashes like a rabid dog. You think this'll hold me? I own half this town. No, Judge Blackwell says coldly. You owned its silence. Not anymore. The townsfolk don't cheer. They don't cheer. They just watch, quiet, resolute. Like they've all woken from the same bad dream at once. But Silas isn't done. Not yet. He reaches into his saddlebag and pulls out a thick, weathered notebook. Ledger, he says, flipping it open. From the back of Jed's stable office. Detailed transactions. Names. Amounts. The judge lifts a brow. Silas reads aloud. January 3rd. Sold female, unnamed, 27 years old, pregnant. Includes 6-year-old child. Buyer, Silas Holt. Gasps. Except I didn't buy anyone, Silas says, voice steady. I paid a bribe to get them out of a cage. That's what this was. A transaction to cover up something darker. He labeled her livestock. Jed spits in the dirt. You damn fool. She was mine. She married me. Gave up her rights the moment she signed the papers. Lila's mother, her name now known as Etta, steps forward, hands trembling but firm. Those papers were forged, she says, her voice louder than it's ever been. You tricked me, drugged me when I tried to leave. And when I told you I was pregnant, you said it'd make me worth more. Rebecca Yates lifts a cloth-wrapped bundle from her satchel and hands it to the judge. He unwraps it. Inside, a lockbox. And inside the lockbox, photographs. Black and white shots. Etta, chained at the ankle. Lila, curled in a hay pile. Close-ups of bruises. Stamps from the Private Investigators Bureau in Denton. Blackwell's face darkens. How long did you think you could hide this? Jed lunges again, toward the box this time, but Pastor Hiram intercepts him with one swing of his cane, knocking him flat. The judge signals to his guards. Take him to Denton. Charge him with unlawful imprisonment, attempted trafficking, and conspiracy to defraud. Sheriff Mort, too, will investigate how many others they sold under false pretenses. The deputies glance at Mort, then at Blackwell, then slowly, nervously step away from both. Mort tries to puff his chest, but no one's standing behind him anymore. You better run, Rebecca says coolly, because your badge don't mean anything once it's covered in blood and lies. He makes it 2 steps before a farmer tackles him into the mud. And just like that, the illusion breaks. Jed and Mort are marched through the square like thieves in daylight. Women hold their children closer. Men lower their hats, not out of respect, but shame. The Tully name, once a symbol of power, becomes a curse on every tongue. Silas kneels beside Lila. It's over, he murmurs. He can't hurt you anymore. She doesn't speak, just throws her arms around his neck and holds tight. Etta stands beside them, the sunlight catching her tears. Not from fear, from relief. The crowd begins to murmur. She's free now. She was always better than him. How did we not see it? They're not just talking about Etta.
They're talking about themselves.
And Silas? He stands, quietly watching the collapse of a man who thought he was untouchable and learning that justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't knock. It breaks the damned door. The crowd is gone. The dust has settled. But justice? It lingers, loud, heavy, and undeniable. Jed Tully's estate hits auction first. His grand house on the hill, the one with the iron gates and blood-stained secrets, is stripped of its dignity. Furniture pulled out onto the lawn. Paintings torn from walls. The Tully name chiseled off brass plaques like it was never there. Word spreads fast. Not just in Rephrise, but across neighboring counties. Man who sold pregnant woman exposed in trafficking scandal. Headlines splash across broadsheets. His face, once synonymous with old money and power, becomes the face of shame. And Silas? Here he builds, not with wood or stone, but with purpose. The barn, where Etta and Lila first found shelter, is cleaned out, repaired, and turned into a safe house. Not just for them, for others. Women running from fists, boys turned out from hateful homes, people shoved to the margins because they didn't fit someone else's definition of worthy. Etta teaches them to plant herbs and mend clothes. Lila, once silent as snowfall, reads books aloud to new children who come in scared. Each page turned is a new wound healed. And Silas? He just listens. I never thought you'd fight like that, Rebecca says one evening as they sit on the porch, watching the moon rise. I never thought I had to, he replies. She smiles. You always did. You just didn't know who needed you. The townsfolk changed too. Some slowly, some loudly. Old Hiram, who once muttered about that Tully girl like she was a stray dog, now leaves jars of honey at the porch without a word. Mrs. Cartwright from the general store starts keeping toys by the register, just in case Miss Lila stops by. And when Sheriff Mort's trial begins, people attend. Not to support him, but to see accountability in action. Judge Blackwell doesn't just strip his badge. He reads out loud every report Mort falsified, every call ignored, every victim failed. By the end, there's no applause, only silence. And sometimes, silence says everything. Etta stands to testify. Hands shaking, voice steady. He treated us like less than animals. He made us invisible. But we were never gone. We were watching. And when she finishes, Lila clutches her hand and says clearly, for the whole court to hear, "My mom is the bravest person I know." Silas weeps that night, not from sadness, from release. Because the world didn't look away this time. Because justice didn't just arrive, it stayed. Months pass. The wind changes. On the first warm day of spring, Silas, Etta, and Lila walk to the creek. The same one where he first brought them. The same one that shimmered like freedom even when none of them could name it yet. Lila skips stones. Etta picks wildflowers. Silas just breathes. "I still have nightmares," Etta says softly. "So do I," Silas replies. "But they're not winning anymore." She nods. And when she looks at him, it's not with fear, or debt, or distance. It's peace. And as the sun sets behind the pines, Silas Holt finally feels what he thought he'd never find again since his wife passed. Not just justice. Not just redemption. A reason to hope.